Survivor's ready. Go!
Travis spoken.
Boston Rob and Amber are going to do it.
This is a business trip, as I like to say.
You Brad Culpepper.
I'm tired of you and the fucking chicken.
You can call me the puppet master. They can be my little puppets.
It's not like you're making me feel the devil here. You get to milk your own milk, I guess.
We got enough rocks here, too. We could build a pretty decent shelter just using rocks.
I'm supposed to talk glamoury.
Direct from Hobart, it's time for the only Survivor podcast in Australia dedicated to Survivor. Bringing you today's interviews, episodes, and opinions from the greatest reality show on the planet. It's Survivor Oz, and here's your host.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Survivor Oz for another recap of Season 32, Kaoh, Rong, and we're up to, I've almost lost track of the episodes here. Was this episode 9, I believe? 9, 10, something like that. It'll be tagged with the episode if you're confused. But yeah, we're here to talk about the most recent episode, and like we've been doing for most of the season, when it's worked out, we're bringing back past contestants to talk about their feelings on the season and see what comparisons they have from their season to the current one. And this week we're very happy to have somebody who's coming back to the show for the first time in I don't even know how many years. When I looked it up here, the last time you were on the show was back to recap one of the episodes in Philippines. So We'll have some fresh opinions here. Welcoming back to the show, Samoa's Ashley Trainer.
Thank you. I'm very excited.
And first time since Philippines. I mean, I'm guessing you continue to watch the show since then.
I still watch every single episode of every single season. I'm still a huge fan. Just there's been a lot of life changes, so I've been very busy.
Oh, we're glad we could actually nail this down and get you on for this week and before the end of the season and everything. But I guess start off just by telling us how you're enjoying the season as a whole so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I have really enjoyed the season. I love that we're seeing some fresh faces. I think that people are actually playing the game, which has been really fun to watch rather than, people really kind of sticking together and not backstabbing and having some blind sides. I definitely have enjoyed this season, and I am more shocked at the weather and the conditions that these players are in. I think this has to be the hardest season probably ever would be my I think, but I mean, maybe I'm not remembering correctly all the seasons, but I think this is definitely the hardest season ever.
I think Jeff built up this season that way too. I mean, at least he talked about the amount of medevacs, and I think that led a lot of people to believe this was going to be really harsh for the conditions and everything.
Yep.
With this episode, I mean, really, it's kind of happened last week, but I guess the first thing to really talk about is the end of last week's episode, and I guess the entire strategy of this trio, Scott, Jason, and Ty, and their whole sabotage thing. And I'm actually really interested to get your opinion on this, because a lot of people have made comparisons to what Scott, Jason, and Ty are doing and what Russell did in Samoa. So, I mean, they kind of took credit at the beginning of this episode for that being the outcome of the previous vote. I don't know if you feel like that really had anything to do with it, but how did you feel about the whole sabotage thing? And do you think that's something that actually worked for them in this case?
I do think, I do think it worked for them, which is really unfortunate. I think that there are certain lines that you shouldn't cross when you're playing this game. I mean, it's hard enough as it is, but to dump out water, which, is hard to come by, and hide main things that are really going to help these people survive and actually be able to function. I think they crossed a line that they shouldn't have, but I mean, I do think it definitely made the contestants crack. So hopefully going forward, people don't think that this is the route to go, because that could get vicious. It's going to be like Hunger Games soon.
Yeah, if people start completely murdering each other, that would be really bad.
Right, seriously.
Although I wouldn't put it past some of the contestants on the show who've been on before.
I know, seriously.
I guess one thing that's kind of dividing fans is this whole sabotage thing, and whether it worked or not, if this was a smart idea. Because I think the difference with what Russell did, a lot of people are seeing, is that he did it behind the scenes. He was doing it maybe it was real psychological warfare. He wasn't doing it to get the credit for it. And do you think that there's any benefit to Scott, Jason, and Ty doing this openly? And they're basically telling people, yeah, we're doing this. We're trying to control you. But does it actually work like that?
I think that's actually probably the better route than what Russell did, because when you get voted off and you go back to Ponderosa and you're talking to everyone and you're realizing the terrible things that someone was saying about you behind your back or the terrible things that they were doing, you're not going to give them $1 million. However, the way that they're playing it this season, they're telling people this is what we're doing. So maybe there could be a little bit of respect thrown their way because they're being open and honest about it rather than hiding it behind everyone's back. I mean, you have to think of your long-term game, and I think that, they're not really, because that's not a good way to play, personally. I don't think. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's tricky. Obviously this episode, Scott went. If anybody didn't see it, I don't know why you're listening to a recap right now, but Scott's the one who went. But with Jason and Ty, is there any chance that you think they could win the game at this point? Because this is the other thing that's really dividing a lot of fans. And I was personally of the belief that Jason had no chance until we did the recap with Dan Foley a couple of days ago. And he kind of changed my mind on a little bit. But do you think that there's a chance of them winning with the way they're playing?
I think Ty, because Ty hasn't burned a ton of bridges. I don't think Jason has any chance. I don't think he has a chance with the way that he's playing. I think that he's pissed too many people off, and he claims he's playing this fantastic game. But I think Ty's played definitely a better game, and especially this week, I think he really did a good job. However, now he's going to have a huge target on his back, so kind of we'll see how that plays out.
This has been a bit of a weird season, I feel, with, I guess, everybody's strategy. This is something that I think has changed probably since your season. All the way back in Samoa, everything was clear cut. There was the villain, Russell, and then there was, the hero Shambo, and whether that was the case or not, that's the way the editors presented it. And it almost feels like in the last couple weeks, the editors are going out of their way to show the good and the bad with everybody. It seemed like, Aubrey is definitely being set up as like a positive character, but at the same time, we're seeing a lot of flaws with her game in past weeks. So, do you think this is something that, I asked the same question to pretty much everybody this season, but do you think this is something that is a conscious effort the editors are making to try to surprise the audience?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think in previous seasons, once you watch every season, you kind of see, okay, well, this person's getting more airtime. Well, they're probably going to win, or they're really shining this person in a really great light, even if maybe they weren't that great of a player, because they're going to win this season. So I truly have no idea who's going to win this season. Like, just based off that, I think they're doing a really good job editing. One week, you really like a person, the next week you don't. So it's definitely more of a TV show than it has been in the past. More of like instead of like a reality. I don't know. It's more it's definitely more questionable, which with each episode, which is really cool.
I don't know how much you keep up with like the fans and how they view each season, but I think the risk going forward with this, it's definitely great. The dog definitely agrees. But
yeah, they're like, yep.
But I think that the risk a lot of people are worrying about now is because I am of the same opinion as you. I have no idea what's happening from one week to the next. We do power rankings on this, and we're pretty much admitting every single week we're completely winging this. We have no clue how to rank a player from one week to the next. It's great because it is surprising, and there were a few seasons there, maybe back like in the mid to late 20s, where it was getting a bit predictable for the winners. But the trade-off could be if every character is portrayed both positively and negatively too much, that we're just going to end up always having these winners that the fans feel like, well, they didn't deserve it. Like if Ty ends up winning, people could be happy, oh, he's a nice guy, but then they're going to look back and be like, well, look at the mistakes he made. Like, do you think that's a danger?
Yeah, I do think that's a danger. At the same time, though, I think if you are a loyal fan and you're still watching, I think that you can appreciate people's games. I mean, no one's perfect. I think that everyone's going to make mistakes. And, I think in previous seasons, a lot of people have done stuff that hasn't been aired. I mean, how can they air everything? So I think if you're a loyal fan and appreciate the show, then, I don't know if that will necessarily be a fault for them, because I love Ty, and I was really disappointed that he was kind of partnering with Jason and Scott, but at the same time, I think he's kind of bounced back personally.
Yeah. Julia's one that I feel is getting brought up a lot more lately. It took a long time, I feel, before her game really started to come out.
Yep.
And now that it is, I kind of have very different opinions on Julia, where I'm seeing like that she's playing a game, but I'm not sure if it's the game that she's intending to play. Like, there's a lot going on with her that doesn't quite make sense to me. So how are you viewing Julia's game?
So Julia's really young. She reminds me of, there's always one of those every season, right? There's always a younger girl. I mean, I was pretty much that person on my season. I was the younger girl, naive, had only camped once. I think she truly has no idea what she's doing. I'm wondering if maybe, how big of a fan is she of the show? Has she watched it? I think she's kind of just throwing out different things to do to try to get herself further, but I don't think I personally don't think she's playing a very good game. I mean, she's being very obvious about things that she probably should not be obvious about, like, acting like, playing both sides, and a few of the people saw that. But I don't like her game. How do you feel about her game?
Oh, we're opening it up every week when we talk about Julia. I go on a bit of a rant, but like for me, it's tough because I'm enjoying. Whether somebody's good at the game or not, I like to see people do things that make for good TV. Yep. And her playing both sides is making it interesting in a point in the season where it usually gets to be a bit predictable. But
right.
I find it confusing because the way she rationalizes her moves is what I think is wrong. Like, she'll say, I want to play both sides. And that makes sense. You get yourself in the position to be a swing vote. But then she talks about how she's going to join the guys last week and even this week. And yet, even if she did that, the numbers wouldn't be in their favor. So, I don't think she's counting. It's a good strategy, but it's like wrong time to do it. And then the other thing is where she is saying, I want to be sitting next to these guys at the end. And it would make sense. They're kind of characters that are going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. But she's saying it's because they betrayed everybody, and I'm thinking they haven't voted anybody out yet, and they haven't gone against their word to anybody. And so far, Julia's voted out, Nick, Debbie. She's voting out all the people in her alliance. So I don't get the way she's rationalizing it.
Right. I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah,
100%.
Do you think that a time will come now, especially now that if she were to flip, they're down even more in numbers? Which side do you think she would pick?
Oh, man. I think she's going to choose the side where she thinks that the numbers are in her favor, realistically. I mean, I don't...
That's if at the moment she does it, she's counting to see what the numbers are.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think she has any loyalty to anyone out there. I think she's just kind of flying by the seat of her pants, and if something better comes her way that she thinks is better, she's going to go for it.
It is kind of strange. Like you said, she doesn't really have any real allies. I think that's something that I've been picking up on the last couple of weeks, is that for a lot of people out there, there's no strong alliances, and maybe that's one of the reasons why Scott, Jason, and Ty got so much airtime, because they were a real alliance. But it was kind of surprising with Julia. We saw all the way back at the beginning of the season that Anna, Julia, and Michelle were like this really tight group. But then as soon as Anna was gone, there wasn't even any talk of Julia and Michelle being together. They were talking about being with Nick, both of them, which we never saw that at all. So, yeah, I mean, she kind of is in a bad position if she doesn't latch onto a group at this point.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting that you bring that up. There isn't really any super strong ties. I mean, the strongest one was Scott and Jason, but now that's gone, and now who's going to band together and be that final 2 or 3? I don't know.
Even sometimes people throw it out there, like this week, I can't remember who it was that mentioned, they said Aubrey and Joe aren't gonna, go against each other, but yet they haven't voted together 2 votes. Aubrey's gone against him, and last week, she went against him again. So, I guess we could, if we can, find out something to talk about Joe here. Let's get him out of the way. Do you like Joe on the show, or do you feel like maybe we're not seeing enough of him?
I don't think we're seeing enough of him. He's one of those characters that you see and you're like, who's that guy again?
Yeah.
Which is really unfortunate because he's made it far. I'm wondering, what is he doing? Is he just hanging out there and so he's not getting much airtime? What's he doing?
Mm-hmm.
That's my question about him. Because, I don't know, it's weird. He's just kind of non-existent. He sucks at challenges.
No kidding.
And so he's out right away.
Yeah, both challenges this week, Joe's out right away, and it's seconds into the challenge, and they almost don't even make a big deal out of it. But,
right? I'm shocked Jeff hasn't been like, oh, and Joe's out again.
Yeah, he's so known for calling people out for poor challenge performance.
Right.
Do you think that that's something, you said, how is Joe still there? And maybe that's the reason why. Would he be an easy person to beat at the end?
For sure. I think he'd be an easy person to beat. I mean, if he's even up against Audrey, Audrey has played, especially I think this week she's played a good game trying to get Ty to a line, bringing up some really good points. She's been a beast in challenges. I think going up against her, I mean, really anyone, I think that he doesn't have a chance.
Yeah. Aubrey actually is interesting because I've had some negative, I've liked her as a character, but in the last, I already mentioned, the last couple weeks, she's made some bad moves and definitely pushed a lot of people away. But I felt like this was the week where she really stepped up, not just for the game, but even just as a character. We saw a little bit more life out of her, and definitely more in the challenges.
Right.
I was really surprised to see her challenge performance, but let's talk a bit about the immunity challenge here. It's not that the challenge was anything different, but I guess the fact that they could pick their own reward, or I guess the reward challenge, not the immunity. No, it was the immunity, wasn't it? Where they got to pick the advantage.
The advantage was the award.
Yeah. Okay. So
a reward,
when they got to pick that, I personally, I thought that was a great addition to the game, where you're only competing against a few people. So at this point of the game, if you're in this season, or if you're in any season, as somebody who's actually been out there, if you have the choice between food, if you have the choice between, a letter from home, and you have the choice of an advantage in the game, which one would you pick?
I think it would depend on who I was aligned to and how confident I felt in my game. So, and also you have to think about who else is out there and what they're going to choose. Because if everyone chooses advantage, then, there goes that.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to think about the other players. I mean, they're pretty far in the game. I would have, personally, I feel like I would have gone towards the advantage. Because I think no matter who your allies are in the long run, you need to look out for yourself out there. So I think that would be the one that I would have gone for.
When I was watching it this week, my wife's pregnant, of course, and she's like, I'm instantly going for that food. And I'm like, no, not the food, the advantage. She's like, no, look at that cheeseburger. So she made her choice clear.
I mean, here's the thing, though. If you're in a really strong alliance and you have full confidence that you're safe, I mean, and you're really, really hungry, that food might be what you need.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it all depends on who you're aligned to and I guess how strong those players are as well.
And that the food's not something like sea slug intestine milkshake or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly.
You mentioned Aubrey's challenge performance this week, and I think challenge performance is something that's played a big part in putting targets on people's backs. And it is kind of surprising that Ty and Aubrey are coming out as the big challenge performers here, but there was even a mention this week of Sydney not winning it. So I want to talk a little bit about Sydney. Just, I guess, start just by letting us know what you feel about Sydney's game all around, and if maybe the fact that she's getting from Scott and Jason, could that really cost her in the end, or was that the right move to make?
I think Oh, man. I feel like I have mixed feelings about her. Because some days I really like her, and then other times I'm like, oh, what are you doing? I think your game's awful. Like, you need to actually, like, be nice to these people. And but then sometimes I like how honest she is. So I feel like I'm very mixed on her. I'm not rooting for her to win. But I am glad she, called them out, because I think that someone needed to, because no one had the guts to do it and to actually kind of go up against them. So that's kind of my thoughts on her.
I'm wondering, though, like, considering she's a bodybuilder, I think everybody expected her to be a big challenge performer. And she even mentioned she hasn't won a challenge yet. And I kind of have a theory, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I have this theory that she's intentionally holding back in these challenges so that she's not pegged. I would figure she's going to be automatically assumed she's the biggest target because she's so physical. Do you think that maybe she is throwing these challenges? Because when she is dropping out of these things, it doesn't seem almost natural.
Right. Yeah, I think I would agree with you on that for sure. I mean, if you're a really strong competitor in challenges, you're going to have a target on your back. However, at the same time, if you get to the end and say, oh, I didn't win a challenge, how likely are you to win? Unless she's waiting until, the final 3 challenges so she can just then go in and just completely dominate to then get herself ahead. I mean, my thought too, like when you look at it, Scott, he's a professional basketball player. You would think he's pretty fit, and he wasn't, he was good at the basketball type challenges, those types of things. But when you have a lot of muscle, it has to be harder for them to compete because it's a lot more weight. Like Ty is so little, and so like those types of challenges are easier for him. So it would be stupid to throw them, but at the same time, maybe she isn't giving it her all.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about it like that.
With the alliances that are in place now, like we mentioned, there's not really any strong groups going forward. Do you think, like, if at this point somebody's going to form an alliance to make it to the final 3, which factions do you think could possibly come out of this?
Oh, man. Oh, that's a really good question.
Especially now that Ty's split off.
Right, exactly. And I feel like Ty is in a weird place. I think he's in a weird place. I do think he will make it far. So I would say and hope that if I were to go with anyone, it would be Michelle, Aubrey, and Ty. That's the 3.
Out of that 3, who do you think has the best chance of winning?
Ty.
Yeah?
Do
you
and maybe I'm just saying that because I like him so much.
Well, I mean, he's been such a big character this season. Do you feel like... I think this is the tricky thing, is that we're almost being led to believe at this point that nobody can win because everybody is angry people on the jury. I mean, Aubrey voting out Debbie, and Michelle and Julia voting out Nick, and Sydney turning on Scott and Jason. Now Ty turning on Scott and Jason. But is it simply going to reach a point where one of these players is kind of the lesser of 2 evils? I guess specifically with guys like Scott and Jason. Now that they're kind of angry with everybody, where do you think they're going to lean in the end? Is this going to be a season where people vote more for who played the best game, or is it one where they're going to take things more personally?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I feel like this is going to be a personal ending. I do. Just with how everyone has been acting, and I do think this will be more of a personal season ending in how they're going to actually vote.
Is there, like, when you're on Survivor, like, take your season, for example, I mean, you didn't necessarily make it to the jury, but when you get voted out, is the game kind of left behind instantly and then you just move on? Like, are you and Ben sitting there buddying up, like 5 minutes after you're voted out, or you're going on, like, vacation together and everything? Like, or is there a point where you do have to kind of get over what happened in the game?
I truly think when you're done, you're replaying everything in your head. I thought about everything that I did, everything I would do differently for years. And no joke, I would think about it every single day for years. And like when I got voted off and I went to Ponderosa and I was with Ben, and Ben specifically, I was not a fan of his. I mean, we still butted heads after. I mean, we're traveling together. I still didn't really like him. There were still situations that I would just completely ignore him. So people still hold on to things that happen out there, and you still think about it. And I mean, I'm sure you've heard that from a lot of people, is you think about it all the time of what you could have. It's all that, like, what if I would have done this? What if I would have done this? How would I do it differently if I were to be called back again, for those second chances? So it's definitely not something you just you're done and it's over with.
Well, I guess moving off this season for a second, like, I guess when you were voted out, I don't know if it was just the way the show profiled it or if that was the story they wanted to tell, but it really was, I guess, a lack of being able to strategize that week because of the weather conditions. Like, was that the main reason? Like, is that what it came down to, that nobody really had a chance to talk about who you're going to vote for?
Absolutely. So we had 5 days straight of rain. And so what I heard happen, because I talked to a few people after, like, why did you choose me? Like, I thought we were strong and we were going to vote out Liz.
Yeah.
Like, what happened? Apparently what happened is they took me away for an interview, which they do every day. They took me away for an interview, and I guess Russell said, let's vote out Ashley, and everyone just agreed. So we didn't strategize. Normally you strategize a ton before Tribal. No one strategized, like, at all, and I thought everything was strong going into Tribal. And Russell was gunning for me because I got Ben out, and anyone that was playing the game, he did not like that. He wanted him out.
Do you blame the weather to this day, or you're spending years, like, if it hadn't rained that day, would I still have been there? Would I have been the one beating Russell at the end?
I mean, I don't blame the weather. I'm a very, like, I feel like I'm a pretty strong woman, and I'm not a pushover. If someone pisses me off, I'm going to tell you. And Russell knew that, he had said, like, we had some pretty candid conversations, and he had said some things that pissed me off, and I was not letting him control me. So ultimately it came down to that. I was not letting him control me. No matter what he said, I didn't care. And so my thing is, if I would have been put on the other tribe, how far would I have made it? If I wouldn't have been with Russell, how far would I have made it? If I would have just sat back and not really played hard, how long would I have made it? Because if I would have just let Ben coast through and just been okay with having him around camp,
like, as a target?
Like, what do you mean?
Like, keeping Ben as a target, do you mean?
Oh, no, keeping Ben and not voting him off. Because Russell wanted him to stay and I wanted him to go. So I got Ben voted out because I did not see eye to eye with Ben. I thought he was a jerk. And so if I would have just kind of let him stay there and gone with Russell, I am pretty sure I would have made it farther, because we would have gone with the plan. Liz would have been voted out, and then I would have made it to merge. And then I think once merge happened, I think that it would have been a totally different game for me moving into the merge.
On this season, I mean, there's a lot of impulsive moves with like voting people out. I mean, Aubrey, I guess, is the next one to talk about here. When, she voted out Peter early in the season, it wasn't even originally her idea. It was Joe's idea. And then she didn't want to go along with it. And then when she eventually said, yeah, let's do it, Joe said, no, like, let's just stick with the plan now. And, everything with Debbie last week, I mean, there's a lot of impulsive moves I think she's made, but like I said earlier, this is the week where maybe it's finally coming together for her. But there was that mention. I don't know if you're one of these viewers who tries to read into, oh, they're showing us this one scene to set up something that's going to happen later on or not. But the one thing that worried me was when they pointed out that, or Scott pointed out that twice throughout this game, he had approached Aubrey to work with her, and she had just shut him down. And so, I mean, Aubrey's weakness has obviously been the social game. But do you feel like she can recover especially with now several people on the jury who are not really in her good books, do you think she can recover her social game, or do you think that she did made up any ground this week with it?
I think she could recover. I definitely think that there's still a lot of game left. And, if she makes it the rest of the way and is in the final three, if she makes good alliances and good relationships with the people that are left, even if they get voted out, they'll have a lot of influence on the jury and what the jury has to think.
It is weird, too, because even with Neil, who was her biggest ally, I mean, I don't know if you heard about much after that. They obviously showed it on the show that Neil didn't give her the idol, and then Neil apparently said after the episode aired that it was because she told him that she was going to vote him out at some point. So it's like she's lost even her own alliance member, her closest ally, potentially as a jury vote. I kind of went on record a few weeks now as saying that Aubrey had no chance of winning. Not that I didn't like her as a character, but just that I didn't think her game was playing. But I just feel like it's reached the point now in the season where everybody has made these mistakes and everybody has angered somebody in the jury that it may just come down to who's played the game best. And do you think that Aubrey's game has stepped up at this point? Is she making the right moves?
Oh, man. I don't know if she necessarily has a chance to win. I don't know if she's necessarily even making the right moves. I do think a big move for her was getting Ty this week to really think things through and actually see things. Because I think sometimes when you're in the moment, you're very blinded by your alliance and what you think is happening. And then if someone brings up something and points something out, Ty was sitting there with Scott and Jason and realizing I don't have a say in this. And so I think just her communicating and really showing things to people and pointing things out, because she's very, very smart. But is she too smart for this game?
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, is she thinking too much about it? Maybe. I don't know if she necessarily has a chance to win, though. I think Michelle has a better chance to win than she does.
Well, I guess one thing that's come up quite a bit with Aubrey is the fact that she is such a big fan of the show, and there's been a lot of comparisons to like Spencer and Shirin from past seasons. Okay. That maybe being that big of a fan of the show is causing her to make these big moves without thinking it through. Do you feel like a fan of the game is maybe at a disadvantage, or do they have more of an advantage, than somebody who maybe understands the rules but isn't so dedicated to the game they can't separate it from the show?
I think that if you're a huge fan, I think that could definitely be a disadvantage. You've seen so many things happen. You've seen so many people do so many things. You're watching it at home thinking, oh, this person's playing a great game. I want to play like them. So, you see they make all these huge moves. So maybe she's at a disadvantage because she's trying to do all these things to try to win, but it's causing, ruined relationships. It's not making her game look very good to her peers.
We've kind of danced around it for this episode, so now's the time to bring it up. The whole move with Ty and the, not playing the Super Idol. I mean, before we even go into it, do you like that these additional idols are making their way into the game, or these extra advantages?
I think it's cool. I think it adds a different layer to the game. I think that I really like it this season because I like how it played out, how it didn't work, how they thought it was going to work and they were so confident, and it just got completely blown. And now the Super Idol's gone because Scott went home with an idol in his pocket.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool that you have to align with other people to make it work. And you have to make sure that everyone's going to actually do it to make it work. So I like the advantage piece. I like those.
Well, I completely agree with you about how it didn't even play out, because I think a lot of people have they've tried this in the past couple seasons, maybe creating some type of super idol or some type of super advantage, and it never really ends up being played. In a way, it's almost more interesting that it didn't work out, because it gave us a very unpredictable storyline. And this great moment where you're seeing the double take where Scott's just look, like you said, how confident they were. This was going to happen. And Scott's just looking at him, like, come on, do it. And he's just looking around. It's like, no, I don't think so. Was that like the ultimate moment of the season, or has there been a better tribal council moment this year, do you think?
No, I think that was a pretty epic, like, go down in history moment right there. I mean, I know everyone, I was sitting at home on my couch going, oh my gosh, is he going to do it? Is he going to do it? Is he going to do it? And watching everyone's faces, I was just, that was a really cool Survivor moment. For sure.
Do you think had this Super Idol played out and these three stuck together, would the game have gotten boring just with the amount of power that they have?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
I think it would have been so predictable. I mean, it would have been, and then they were telling everyone. I'm really glad it went the way that it did because this is going to make for a better ending to the season rather than knowing every single thing that's going to happen and it being super, super predictable, knowing that they have all the power.
And it honestly couldn't have played out better just for the fact that they had these extra things. Ty had an extra advantage, and Jason had immunity. I mean, they were unstoppable all the way to the finals, and for it to fall apart one week later is just so epic.
It was amazing. That was amazing. Yep.
Do you think with Ty that he is going to side with somebody next week, or because now he really is the most unstoppable person in the game if he wants to be? He could be like Mike in Worlds Apart, where he just relies on immunities and stuff like that to get to the end. But Ty's been a very unpredictable player too. He's made a lot of moves where you're like, I'm not sure what the guy's thinking here. With the advantage and with this immunity idol that he still holds on to, Scott's is gone, but he still has, I guess, a regular immunity idol. Do you think he's going to try to go solo, or will he try to join up with somebody again?
I do think he'll try to buddy up with someone. I mean, I feel like we saw a little bit of kind of foreshadowing last episode where he talked about Aubrey and how they have, I don't know if it was last episode or the episode before, but he likes her energy. And so maybe they'll start kind of bonding and have an alliance, and wherever Aubrey goes, whoever that's going to be with, maybe then they'll stick together. At least I feel like he's such a kind soul that he won't fly solo. I think he'll buddy up with someone.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the most interesting thing, if you really pay attention to these characters and who they latch onto, every single grouping he's been in, he's found somebody who is like, I like this person, I want to work with him. First it was Caleb when they were on the Beauty Tribe. Caleb's gone, and suddenly he's like, I really like Scott, I want to work with Scott. Then it's like, I really like Aubrey. So yeah, I think you're right. He probably is going to be that guy. Maybe, do you think there's certain people that they need somebody to play off of, and they need somebody to feel comfortable with?
Yeah, I think especially in this situation, you want that person to rely on. I mean, they are reaching the end of the game, but they still have a lot of game left. So, you want that person you can confide in, and that person that you can trust, just to make the game more bearable for you.
I guess we can move into our final set of questions here, which we really haven't even gotten an idea of who you're rooting for this season. So that's not really one of the questions. I guess I'll just start out by saying that, like, putting the game aside, who do you want to see win this season? Who's the person that every week you're like, oh, I can't wait to see what they do?
That's Ty.
Yeah.
I've liked him from like the first episode. He's the person I've been rooting for from the beginning. And even if he stuck with Jason and Scott, who I don't like either of them, I still would have been rooting for him just because I just think he's a great character overall. I think he's super entertaining, and I think he's overall a really good human. And I like to see good people win rather than people that are at the end and I'm like, no, don't win, and then they win and it's like, oh, I just wasted a whole season and I watched this jerk win.
Well, I mean, it's almost like he's the new Rupert. Like the show wants him to be the new Rupert, because really he did some pretty nasty things in this game, but it's just instantly forgiven. There is something about him where it's like people don't want to be mad at the guy.
It's true. It's so true. He is like the new Rupert. I haven't thought about him like that. But I mean, I love like how tied he is to the chicken.
Yeah.
And how Julia last week was like, as soon as Ty's gone, we're killing
we're
killing
gonna
Mike
eat Mark.
or Mark, whatever I'm like, seriously? Like he's just a good guy.
Yeah.
And you see like, I feel like when you watch this too, you see a lot of, when you're in that situation, I think your true self comes out and who you actually are.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we're seeing that there are good people left in the world, even though, yes, he's done some things, but he's overall, he loves and respects animals and
trees.
Yes.
Even though there's another example. He's like, I don't want to hurt the trees, and then he's ripping them out of the ground to get his
right.
idol.
Yeah.
I almost feel like if the chicken's not there, he's just going to name one of the trees or something like that, and that's going to become his new friend. He's going to play the game with a tree to the end.
Yeah, I love how the chicken like sits on his shoulder.
Yeah,
I think it's so funny, and he's always like holding the chicken. It's awesome.
Yeah, the chicken is his replacement for Caleb. That's what the real thing is.
Yeah.
So I guess let's move into the final set of questions here, and it's final 5 questions, but I have a bonus question that I've added on that Ben didn't originally have, which I think is pretty entertaining. So let's start just based on this season. Who's your tip to win at this point? So personal feelings aside, who has the best chance of winning the season?
Oh man, for the people that are left, I'm gonna go with my man Ty.
Mm-hmm.
I am. I'm gonna go with I think it's honestly, I think it'd be a toss up between. Oh gosh, I'm just gonna go with Ty because I feel like I could go so many ways with this.
You have more choices too, because just as a reminder, when you were on for the Philippines recap, I think it was the second last episode of the season, if I'm reading this right, and you picked Lisa as your tip to win. There's a lot more people this time around. It's not like there's only 4 or 5 left.
Yes, I know. There are a lot of people. I mean, I'm somewhat rooting for Michelle now. Just to see a girl win would be nice too.
That's something we didn't even talk about, but it's been brought up so many times this season about, I guess it was really Debbie who put that forth, that she wants a woman to win this season and everything. So do you feel like that's what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
Just based on everything we've been told from Debbie and everybody else. And I guess we've also seen this kind of gender divide too.
Right. Yeah. I think it's going to really come down to how the jury's divided. I mean, there has been a lot of, let's do a women's alliance. I don't think Sydney has any chance of winning, and now watch, she wins. But I don't think Sydney has a chance to win. I don't think Joe has a chance to win. So, I mean, it really only brings it down to, and Julia, I do not think has a chance to win, so we can just X her out. Jason, it would pain me to see him win. It would pain me. It would be one of those that I'm like, oh God, I just wasted all season on him.
Yeah. I will tell you, your predictions are already better than Ben's, because like a week ago when we were in Minneapolis, after you left, Ben, myself, and Gary, we did a video giving our predictions on the season, and Ben called Debbie as the winner 24 hours before she was voted out.
Oh.
Yeah. So you're better than the regular host of this show. That's something.
Well,
moving on, what would be your dark horse then? So maybe not the best chance of winning, but they could slip in there.
that would be Jason.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that he could continue if he plays better with Scott being gone, because sometimes when your wingman's gone, maybe he'll start to play a little bit better in a more civil game. And maybe, I mean, you know, granted, he is out for revenge. He's saying next week.
He's been saying that for 3 weeks now.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like if he makes it, people could actually maybe go, well, let's bring him along. And then he's sitting in the final 3 and the jury's saying, well, hey, you know, Jason played better than, what if it's Jason, Sydney, and Joe? Well, who are you going to choose to win there?
Yeah, I guess it all depends on the groupings. And it's interesting because I had no I had no hope for Jason winning the season at all until like when I did the recap for the last episode with Dan Foley. He kind of turned around, and you're holding the same opinions that he was saying. It's like you could get to the end and say, I didn't really betray any of you. You know, I played the game, and if you're sitting next to just the right people, then you have a shot still.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Would you stop watching if somebody like Jason won, though?
No. I would not. I would only, I think I'm such a big fan of the show. I'd still keep watching.
Would it have been harder if somebody like Ben won? A bit more of a pause there.
I feel like I'm just such a big fan of the show that I think no matter who wins, at least then you kind of go into the season fresh. I think the only way I wouldn't watch a new season would be if like all the people that I've hated from previous seasons were on it.
like
Truthfully.
Survivor Douchebag Edition or something like that.
Right. That's the thing. If there were people from previous seasons that I just cannot stand watching on TV, I probably wouldn't watch if it were all of them.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those shows where there's always hope. I'm the same way. I haven't missed one episode since day one. And I think the most upset I ever got was in All Stars when Amber beat Rob. And I was upset enough that I re-edited. I had all my VHS copies of that, and I re-edited the end to have Rob as the winner and everybody cheering and just reading the last vote. And I think that's probably what saved me from tuning out to the next season. But yeah, there's always hope that the next season could bring a really good winner.
Exactly. Yep, that's the beauty of this show is even if you're not happy with the winner, maybe next season it'll be better.
Yeah. So who do you think is going to be the next one to go?
So if Jason gets his revenge, then I think it could potentially be Ty, sadly. Mm-hmm. If Jason gets his revenge and gets everyone to vote him out. However, I don't think that's going to happen, and I think maybe we might see Joe go. They might be like, okay, it's time, and then they vote him out.
I'm going to flip around our last two questions here because I find the fourth question, or my bonus question, is a little bit more fun. But let's just move on to the other question. So everybody on this season, who is playing the most similar to how you'd play or did play?
Oh, boy. I have not thought about that. Oh, man. Oh, I want to say it's, oh gosh, this is so hard. Because I would say Aubrey in the way of her trying to like influence and really think things through and be strategic. Because I feel like I was trying to do that with Russell and with everyone else to vote for specific people and why they should vote for specific people. And I was thinking about the game in that way of who can I bond with, and what if this person goes out, then what? So I would just say Aubrey, just for her strategy with people and influencing, not anything else.
So here's kind of the last set of questions, and I'll group them together. So this is a brains versus brawn versus beauty season. If you were cast on this season, which one of those tribes would you end up on?
I would probably say the beauty tribe.
Mm-hmm. You're the first person, I think, who's ever answered that. Everybody else is always like, I'd be on the brains.
Like, so the thing is when I watch them, and this has happened twice now, you see the people on the brains, and I'm like, oh my God, these people are wicked smart. Do I think I'm wicked smart? No. Do I have the muscle? No. Mm-hmm. So there we go. That's where I lie.
So then the bonus part of this is taking your season Samoa and taking yourself out of the equation. If you were to cast the ultimate brain, the ultimate brawn, and the ultimate beauty from this season, who do you put in those three positions from Samoa?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So the ultimate brain. Oh man, I'm trying to even think of everyone and how they. Okay, so Braun, I would say Russell Swan.
Okay.
He is a beast. I mean, at Ponderosa, he would pick up like full on like boulders and was lifting them over his head. Like he is a beast. So Russell Swan for the Braun. For the brains, I would say Jason.
Okay. That's what I figured.
Yep, super smart. Just an overall really intelligent man. And then beauty, I would say Brett Klauser.
Oh, yeah. Funny enough, Russell did not land in any of the categories, even though he probably would have put himself in all three. Probably.
That is correct.
Yeah. When you said for a second there, you're like, I have to think, I thought you were trying to think of the people, and I'm like, Russell dominated so much screen time in the season that even those on the season with him are struggling to think of who else was on the cast.
I know, which is really unfortunate. I that still bums me out because I feel like when you look at the people that have been brought back from different seasons, no one from Foa has been brought back. Mm-hmm. Only Russell. Now on Galoo, we had Russell Swan and we had Monica.
Mm-hmm. And Laura.
But that's it. Am I missing someone?
Laura on Blood vs. Water.
Oh, and Laura. Yeah. And Laura, yeah. So I feel like our tribe in general just got screwed overall. And they haven't brought anyone back from our specific tribe because Russell just dominated all of us.
I think that's the other thing that really changed with the show, aside from just having straight heroes and villains. Now, almost as a result of how fans responded to the overkill of Russell, maybe not so much in Samoa, because I think he was huge at the time. It was that season that got a lot of people I know into watching the show again. But the seasons after that, the overkill, it's gotten to a point now where there's so much balance with the characters that there isn't really one star. And I mean, I have to say, even just from your season, I think on a first viewing, I struggled to remember much other than Russell at all. And then I went back and rewatched the season, and I'm like, there's so many good characters there. It's really one of those seasons you have to watch a second time to get how good everybody is.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think we had some really, really good characters. And even on my tribe, I think we had some really good people overall that I think, would, given different circumstances, if Russell wasn't there or if they wouldn't have spent so much screen time, so many things happened that were never shown because they were too busy watching Russell find idols or talk bad about other people behind their back.
Yeah. And so much of that was the behind-the-scenes stuff. It wasn't what was happening on camera with everybody interacting and everything.
Right. Yeah, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm hoping that going forward, what they've done with this season, where we have this balance of all these characters, that's something that they definitely can continue with. Because I think that's made this season a little bit more watchable than some of the past ones, despite the fact that it is almost bizarre at times how the game's playing out.
Yes, I completely agree, because I'm definitely enjoying this season. I'm not bored like I have been with some previous seasons, so absolutely. And then I have a question for you. I had heard, and I don't know if you have any insight into this, because I'm not as into, I haven't been as in tune with Survivor Land, but I had heard that this season got taped before last season, but they aired last season first. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I think, they needed to hold off on the fan vote for the second chances. So they filmed that 1 second, but to capitalize on the popularity of getting the vote, they didn't want to make the audience wait, so they aired it first.
Okay.
Which is actually interesting. I mean, now looking at how harsh the conditions are, these were filmed in pretty much the same spot. It's interesting that we didn't see all these medevacs and these terrible conditions the second time around. It almost, I think, makes me wonder, at least, if when they filmed this season, Kaoh Rong, everything went so wrong with the conditions and with how hard it was on the cast that they made these adjustments when they made second chances second.
That would actually make sense. I haven't thought about it like that, because that would make sense for sure. They learned their lesson, and they wanted to make sure that especially these people going back for a second time, that they didn't keel over and
Yeah.
while they're out there. But yeah, that would definitely make sense.
Does it make you wonder, like, after your season, when they came back for Heroes versus Villains, if they intentionally said, let's provide a few more tarps to these people so that we don't have, these miserable rainy conditions wearing everybody down?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely think that they, the first people that go to these locations, they're the trial run, and then it's, okay, well, we'll give you another article of clothing, or we'll give you food, because that was the thing. Our season was the last season that they gave no food. We had nothing. We didn't have beans, we didn't have rice. I have not seen that happen since our season, but you saw Natalie at the end of ours. She was just skin and bone.
Yeah.
She was tiny. So I think they definitely learned that lesson, because they said that there was food everywhere, but there wasn't. We couldn't find anything.
Can you get over the food you did have out there? Like, are you able to go anywhere near any type of, not that slugs are really prepared in restaurants, but any type of like seafood or anything like that? Does it turn you off for good?
No, I struggled initially with like sushi when I got home. That reminded me way too much of sea slug intestines. But now I'll eat. I liked coconut before I went out there, even though they made it seem like I didn't, which I ate the coconut when I was out there. That was not directed at me. I was editing. I still eat coconut. I still eat everything. The only thing that I can't have is coconut water.
Is there a reason why for that?
I don't know. I've tried it, and we had a fair amount of coconut water when we were out there, because we had to actually boil our water. It wasn't one of those things where you went to a little bucket. We actually had to go to a stream, take it out of the stream, boil the water. So we had a fair amount of coconut water as well. So I don't know. I actually get sick after I drink it, and I don't know if it's just from my body having too much of it. I have no idea why, but who knows? I didn't get sick off of it when I was out there, but now I do when I'm home.
And you probably don't enjoy the rain as much anymore either.
Oh boy, nope. I have always hated the rain and being wet, and now so even more, and especially after I feel like we had a little bit of the well, I don't even know what you'd want to call it, but we all were a little bit traumatized from the amount of rain and being drenched for that long.
Minnesota winters and blizzards are preferable to rainstorms.
Yeah, being caught in the rain. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, it was great to have you back on the show here and get all of your opinions on the season. And I don't think we got a winner's pick from your dog, but I guess we'll just go with Ty as well. It's the family favorite right now.
It's family favorite. It's the full family favorite. My dad still watches, and we're both rooting for Ty.
Hopefully we won't have to wait 7 seasons before getting you back on the show again.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Ashley Trainer from Samoa for being on the show to recap with us this week, and huge thanks to her because this is the earliest we've got a recap out, I think, all season. We're a good 2 or 3 days ahead of schedule, so hopefully we can keep this up and bring somebody nice and quick next week. On the downside, we are a little bit behind on our Oztopsy and the Ozlet show. Those should be going up pretty soon. Oztopsy is being recorded maybe in about 24 hours, so hopefully that'll be out in a day. Ozlet show maybe a day after that, but we have lots of material still to come, as well as the power rankings this week, which I have no clue how I'm going to write mine yet, or how you could rank anybody on this season, but that's part of the fun, just seeing how mixed up all of our rankings are every week. And if anybody is wondering, the Reality Rally pictures, video, everything that Ben has, the interviews, they should be coming very soon. Just waiting on his vacation has been extended. He's still touring around Ben Waterworth's World Tour 2016, whatever you want to call it. But we will be back next week, and keep looking for the Reality Rally stuff. Hopefully it'll be up by then. And until next time, we will speak to you on the